ain't see me, you Stevie. Wondering how I reach more evolutions than Evie and make it look easy.
What is up, Earth's mightiest subscribers? It's your boy Ernie, the Blerd without fear. Welcome back to the channel. Today, a special guest. If you've been following the channel for a while, you've probably seen this guest before on the show. You probably already know who this guest is, but I'm going to pretend that nobody knows who I'm talking about here. We're just going to pretend. We're just going to, just for a little bit, you know, we're going to let them have the illusion of not knowing. But if you don't recognize, I'm joined today by Joe Casey. And for whatever reason, if you don't know, I don't know how you don't, but you've probably heard of this. It was a little TV show. You guys probably never saw it before. It was this little TV show called Ben 10. I don't think anybody watched it. I don't think anyone watched it. No. It wasn't like, you know, internationally like famous or like any kind of a pop culture phenomenon or nothing like that. Or you probably never heard of Generator Rex either, but yeah, that's probably another story altogether. But yeah, you know, these two little shows that Joe helped create with Man of Action, as well as Joe also being responsible for writing a pretty huge, sizable portion of cable back in, I think, what was it? It was about roughly like late 90s, like early, like maybe like late 90s-ish?
Late 90s, yeah, 97 through 99, yeah.
Probably the cable most people remember, you know, from that time frame. And you've also written stuff like Wildcats. You've got awesome series that just wrapped up over at DC, Kneel Before Zod. You've also got Blood Squad 7 over at Image. You're doing Johnny Quest over Dynamite, as well as the crossover of Johnny Quest with Space Ghost, Space Quest. You've written all kinds of stuff, Officer Down, and so many other things. Welcome back to the channel.
A lot of work. It's a lot of years, man.
Well, you've done a good job. You've done a very good job.
Thank you.
But we're doing something a little different. Y'all might not be used to this. So we're doing something a little different today. You know, normally when I talk about comics, you know, I'm typically a lot of the times talking out of my ass. I'll be honest with you. I'm talking out of my ass a lot of the time. I know a lot of stuff, but very rarely do we ever have the opportunity to get it straight from the source. And it's rare we get this opportunity. So we're gonna take advantage of it. And we're gonna be
the horse's mouth. That's right.
Hey, he said it. He said it. Like, so just remember, anything that's said here, none of y'all can come back in the comments and tell me how wrong I am. Because you know, Joe is going to be here to co-sign it.
Yeah.
If you tell him he's wrong, well, then I can't help you. You can't be helped after that. I don't know what else to tell you.
Coming from you. That's all I'm here for.
So, Joe, we're going to be talking about the new series that's going to be, I think, literally coming out like as we speak. As the time we're recording this, like we're literally on almost, I guess, the eve of its release. Weapon X-Men #1. Man, I'll say this much. You know, this is something that's going to be kind of flying under the One World Under Doom banner, which already kicked off with some pretty wild stuff. So everything within this is you know, it's all kind of happening under that very same umbrella. I'm curious to know, just kind of before we really like dig in, how much did you know about the setup for One World Under Doom before you started like going all in writing this this comic?
I didn't know about it at first when I came up with the story.
Mm-hmm.
But when I told Tom Brevoort, the editor, I was like, in the first issue, they go to Latveria. He said, "Hey, you should know." And then he told me, and I said, "Well, okay, that's cool. That's fine. It doesn't really interfere with the story I want to tell."
Mm-hmm.
He knew that too, but we just had to get on the same page so that I could throw in that little piece of dialogue that referred to the state of the world in the universe at that time. So it was serendipitous, but it was not a rough thing. It wasn't a tension at all. It fit just fine with what we wanted to do.
Just to kind of give y'all kind of this the setup of, so that way, we can kind of, let you guys know where we're going to be going with this. Weapon X-Men #1 is basically taking some of the, I would dare say, the bad boys of of the X-Men's corner of the Marvel Comics universe. We're talking characters like Wolverine. We're talking Deadpool. We're talking Cable. Yeah, we're talking Chamber of Generation X. And we also are going to be talking about one of the goats of the, not the original lineup of the X-Men, but the post giant size X-Men era, Thunderbird, who I think this is actually his first, not first comic since being brought back from the Shadow Realm, but it's definitely, I would say, probably one of the more prominent titles that he will have been in since then.
Sure.
And these guys, who for the most part don't really get along. These are all characters. It's like, I think it's like varying degrees. It's like it's actually almost like a real clique. Like, it's like there's some characters who are more friendly with each other than others, but there's also characters that each of them don't get along with or don't know quite as well. It actually feels like a real friendship.
Yeah, it's kind of varying degrees of tolerance for each other.
Yeah.
Based on past experiences, based on reputation, based on their own, personal biases. But yeah, that's they each know how to deal with each other on a certain level and kind of know what to expect.
I'll say this. The whole thing of them, and what kind of brings these characters together, largely, because Deadpool being probably, I don't think it's an unfair assessment to say, probably one of the most popular comic characters, comic personalities, in a long time.
Sure.
The guy's everywhere. Right. Obviously, Wolverine, Cable, awesome characters. Deadpool, awesome characters. But seeing characters like Chamber, who I feel like doesn't get a lot of that same kind of love, I feel like has not been in, he's been in a lot of comics, but like just doesn't get, I just feel like he doesn't get used as much, anywhere near as much. It was good to see him and good to see Thunderbird. Like, when you were putting together the squad, I guess, what was your inspiration for bringing these two characters in?
Well, with Chamber, I put Chamber on my Uncanny X-Men roster 20 years ago because I always thought from the very beginning, ever since he was in Generation X, he's been underused. And he's the coolest looking character that came out of that 90s crop of post-Claremont mutants. He's sort of cool and tragic all at the same time. He's got sort of an attitude, and deservedly so, but yet he's got kind of a introspective side. He's just a great character that always tends to get pushed to the side a little bit. No one's ever really focused much on him since 20 years ago when he was in Uncanny X-Men. So I've always had a soft spot for that character. And with Thunderbird, he was such a cool story element in the fact that he's been dead this whole time. He's missed the past, 50 years of publishing history in the X-Men. He's missed all the big events. He's missed all of the dramatic things that have happened to, his teammates have gone on and become legends. And he was kind of the forgotten X-Man. He's definitely feeling now that he's alive again, now that he's, amongst the living. He's pissed about it. He's not happy about his lot in life and what he's missed out on and the destiny that he was denied. So he wants to do something about it. That is the main undercurrent of the first batch of issues. It's what I don't want to give away but that's why he's in Latveria.
Okay,
and,
yes.
Maybe sort of, there are probably astute readers out there who could think about, well, what's in Latveria that could be of use to a guy with that problem that he feels like he missed out on his whole history. And they might be right, they might not be right, but I'm just saying that's there's a reason he was specifically in Latveria.
Even I was kind of sitting there as I was like, reading through this first issue. I'm even kind of at a loss for what it is exactly that Thunderbird is looking for or what he's working towards, because when you talk about how much time he's missed, he's practically a stranger to most comic readers. You know, I actually would remember sometimes when, you know, as a kid reading old X-Men comics, and whenever Thunderbird was brought up, not like having read any of that original you know, Giant Size X-Men or like early Claremont stuff, I was always like, oh wow, like, yeah, and I would see characters like Warpath literally, oh, it must be the same guy. It's like, oh no, not the same guy. Totally not the same guy. So like, yeah, it's one of those things where, you know, it's difficult to say like what he might be up to. But it's also, even, you know, for me with what's going on, you know, with the team as a whole, is kind of some of the shenanigans that they're getting into. They dropped down in Latveria. Deadpool has kind of roped them into this whole thing. Cable's kind of jumped in for the ride because he's kind of already, you know, getting into some shenanigans of his own. Can we talk about what is it that they're ultimately there to do in Latveria? At least as far as, not so much with Thunderbird, but just so much in terms with Wolverine, Cable, and Chamber.
Well, I'll tell you, I'll try to put it like this, because it all sort of ties together, but from different directions, you know. Cable is a time traveler. Obviously, he's from the future, come back to the present to do some stuff. So he knows about that aspect of the Marvel universe. Thunderbird, you know, I mean, if you were, let's say, a man out of time, there could possibly be technology that exists specifically in Latveria that would be of some use to you, perhaps. And if you know about time travel and are intrinsically familiar with time travel, you might have a reason that you would not want someone to get a hold of that technology and use that technology haphazardly and for their own kind of personal agenda. So we're coming at this thing from several directions. And, you know, Cable kind of gets Wolverine involved because Wolverine is new Thunderbird back in the day. You know, they started on the all different X-Men together. Right. And Deadpool kind of tags along because Deadpool has an agenda with Wolverine that he's got to play out, as we've seen near the end of the first issue. So it's one of those things where there's a lot of moving parts that as a writer, it's really fun to figure out how they fit together. What order do you reveal things in? And the fact that it all ties together, you know, I wanted to make the first issue a satisfying chunk of entertainment in and of itself, but all the threads are there to push you into the next issue and then into the greater story. So all those questions that you have are questions, you know, I want readers to have, because they will get answered. All of them will get answered.
And this is kind of with team makeup, really. And I think I would forgive some people for this, you know, being lost in regards to Thunderbird. But what makes Thunderbird's inclusion on this team so interesting to me is the fact that the biggest, I think, rivalry on the team, to me, you know, kind of going back to those older issues, it was always Cyclops and Thunderbird kind of getting in each other's faces. You know, Cyclops is the leader, Thunderbird's the new guy on the team, and he was not having any of Cyclops, and Cyclops wasn't really keen on, you know, Thunderbird either. So like when you said that this was going to be the roster, I got really excited for it because I had remembered reading I think it was Al Ewing's X-Men Red, and it was kind of one of the first times we'd really seen Thunderbird very much at all after he came back. And I always thought it was interesting that while he didn't necessarily like get along with Cable, you could tell that like, oh, he's like, oh, I can tell who you are just based how you carry yourself. Yeah, I can smell the summers on you, that sort of thing. So I was just really excited to see like, oh man, what is it going to be like when these guys have to work together? But then you said something, you know, that also kind of struck a chord, was, you know, the reasonings for why they're there. And if let's say, for instance, if a Thunderbird was looking for some kind of a means to maybe undo something related to, you know, his past, and Cable is there, it's going to make it that much sweeter when they have to interact again. And instead of being, you know, tenuous allies, being like at odds, almost in that same kind of in a almost similar fashion as the way Cyclops and Thunderbird used to, you know, back in the day. Kind of knowing that history, was there anything like specific about the Cyclops Thunderbird I guess, dynamic that you really wanted to try and like play into.
Well, I mean, you make a good point that here's the child of Scott Summers who Thunderbird did not get along with very much
Mm,
back in the day. I think historically, I think one of the reasons that Thunderbird was sacrificed in those early issues is because I think, Chris Claremont, who was writing it at the time, figured out pretty early on that Thunderbird and Wolverine were kind of the same character
yeah.
as first presented. They were both anti-authoritarian. They were
Mhm.
both kind of, sniping at Cyclops. And I think, I mean, listen, it could have been a coin flip. Who's going to survive? Okay, well, Thunderbird's gone, and Wolverine we'll keep going with. But the cool thing now is bringing Thunderbird back. Wolverine's lived this whole time and lived through all
Mhm.
stuff. Now they're, to me, very different characters.
Yes.
Wolverine's kind of more the old soul, the old soldier, who's seen it all and kind of more adopted that samurai outlook. And Thunderbird, to him, no time has passed. He's still the same
Mhm.
hothead, loose cannon that he was back in Giant Size X-Men #1.
Mhm.
So that's been an interesting dynamic to kind of explore. And I read those X-Men Red issues as just to research where these characters have been since he got resurrected. And I
Mm.
was relieved and thrilled that he and Cable did not get along right, really. And
Right.
so I was like, this is perfect. This is perfect. So I mean, I did my due diligence to make sure that the characters fit together in certain ways that made sense for their continuity, made sense for their character, and that gave us somewhere to go with the relationships. Because
Mm.
that's always the fun of a team book, is watching these characters interact and evolve their relationships and evolve how they interact. And I mean, that's the fun of it to me.
You got the right like cast of characters for this because like I didn't even think about that too when you mentioned Wolverine. Wolverine isn't the same guy anymore. As a matter of fact, I think it makes it even kind of a weird, like, cool triple dynamic, because you mentioned that Thunderbird is still pretty much the same. Wolverine has grown up, obviously, so is Cyclops too, but he's not there. But with Cable being there, you're talking about a guy who's the son of the guy that he used to not get along with. And this guy has grown up and done more than, than Thunderbird has accomplished. So, like, you've got this guy who on paper is, he, I guess age wise should be about in the same boat, but is not. So, like, how do you how do you handle that? I think that there's a lot of potential there. I'm actually, I'm anxious to see that first, like, legit, like, Cable, Thunderbird, like, hey, we got to sit down. We got to, like, really, like, get through this. I really can't wait to see what you're going to be able to do with that.
I was really happy with, I mean, the first sort of interaction they have is when they have to kind of blow him out of the forest, and he wakes up and Cable's got his gun on him. I was like, this is kind of encapsulates the dynamic pretty perfectly,
Yeah. It's really good. It is like I said, it just, when I first saw this, you're looking at the lineup, I'm like, this is the most dysfunctional team that on paper they shouldn't work. None of them should be able to work together on any level without at least throwing some jabs, like sniping left or sniping right at each other. You mentioned with Chamber earlier, because, like I say, you had written him before, and I think when I remember checking out your Substack when you were talking about Chamber, which, by the way, there will be a link in the description of this video. You should go check out Joe Casey's Substack. You should go do that. I remember you talking about how, Chamber was, one of your favorite characters. And I was curious to see, like, because Chamber is such an unknown quantity. Like, I know Chamber has his fans, and I know there's people out there who love him, but, like, Chamber's not a household name the way that, some of these other characters are. Like, I think even Thunderbird, for not being around for a lot of the X-Men's history, like, he's still kind of spoken of with a bit of reverence.
Sure.
That, like, I think even, I won't say casuals, but I feel like even people who aren't, like, super duper mega ultra into, like, X-Men lore, comics lore, they at least know who he is on some level. Like, they know that he's, even if they don't know exactly who he is, they recognize his importance. But, like, for Chamber, I feel like, Chamber's always kind of just been, like, off to the side, because I know you can't say with specifics. But like, what was the goal? Like, what was like the mission statement for you, as far as like maybe trying to change how people perceive Chamber as a character?
Well, I mean, I used what was already his history in the comics, which is, like I
Mm,
said, he's been underserved for as
mm,
iconic a visual as he is. I mean, you get what he is from one glimpse. You
mm,
know that he's a mutant that's can't hide what he is. He's dealing with some real physical limitations there. But so what the tack I've taken is that he is a guy who has been all over the mutant Marvel universe. He's been
mm,
Generation X, he's been in the X-Men, he's kind of popped up here and there. He's never really found a place where he belongs, you know, a place where he's felt like it was going to work out. He's very
mm,
trepidatious about hooking up with anybody at this point because he's been through so many iterations of teams and groups and whatnot, and so he's kind of on his guard. Um, but at the same time, the fact that he's tried all these different things means that he's looking for somewhere to belong,
right.
clearly. So it's that dichotomy of character where he's, I don't need anybody, but deep down he's like, I need to belong somewhere. And Cable is the one who recognizes that.
Mm,
Cable has a history with you know, schooling young mutants. I mean, that was the whole vibe of X-Force when he first showed up back in 1989 or whenever it was. So that dynamic exists in his character as well. So getting Chamber in there was sort of touching on that, on both of those characters' history. It's Cable's history of being a mentor and Chamber's history of bouncing around, looking for a place to belong and not finding it. So again, it's just that's part of for me, that's just part of their character makeup. And I'm just tapping into it as best I can.
Yeah, it is strange to me that you would think that, especially for a character who was one of the more like visually different characters at that time, like there weren't really any other characters quite like him.
Yeah.
This is something that my artist minded people out there will probably immediately grab onto this, but I was like, he's a guy who easily passes the silhouette test. He's like, you can literally just block him in shadow and you could probably pick him out of a crowd. He's a guy that has a look. He has an attitude. Like he's just, I don't know. I feel like there was a lot left on the table for him, and I feel like 20 years later, and I feel like you had actually set him up pretty good for any writer to come in after and really do something with him as a character. So I'm actually really excited to see what you're going to do with him this go round.
Visual look. I mean, he is a tough character to depict
Mm-hmm.
in a way that satisfies. I mean, Chris Bachalo was obviously created the character and was the master at depicting him. And ever since then, most artists have had to, just maybe for their own sanity, drawn him in a shorthanded manner. Like
Yeah.
they've made it a little more, maybe a little more graphic, or they put
Mm,
the stupid scarf around him so they don't have to
mm.
draw all that energy stuff. I think Cross in Weapon X-Men is one of the best depictions of Chambers since Baccello.
I will co-sign that.
That's what makes it work. You can't shy away from what he is and what he's supposed to look like. You just got to embrace it and just go with it. And
Mm.
if it's a little bit more work intensive on Cross's part, he seems to be handling it just fine. And he sells that character visually in a way that I haven't seen in years. It feels like.
Yeah, it is. Yeah, because man, every time I have seen him, doesn't matter if it was Krakoan era or pre-Krakoan era or Utopia era, whatever the case, whatever it was. Every time I saw him, he always just kind of looked muted.
Yeah.
He just wasn't all the way there, and I think that's a shame. One thing I did want to bring to, because I actually thought this was such a cool little thing, and this is just kind of showing that at least on some level, I don't think that there's going to be like a whole heap of a lot of like hyper connectivity on this particular front. But I just thought it was such an interesting thing, like when we open up the book and like one of the first things that we lay eyes on is something that's actually kind of a shot. I'm not saying a shot per se, but kind of a nod to some things that are actually going on in like Wolverine's own like orbit. And you actually pulled a character out I hadn't thought about in God. I don't want to date myself, but like I might have been in middle school. Maybe I might have been in middle school. But for those who don't talk about, there's a character by the name of Kyber who comes up in this, and I was like when I saw it at first, I was like, oh, yeah, that's probably just some random dude that Joe made up for this scene. It's probably nothing. And I just kept sitting there thinking about it. I was like, no, this is somebody. This is somebody important. And I went back and looked at it. I was like, oh, yeah, I forgot this dude was ever a thing. It kind of just basically is a friendly reminder that, you know, Wolverine's got his own stuff going on.
Yeah.
You know, by the time that we kick this off, so it almost, and this is something I always kind of appreciate when comics where there's like characters like Wolverine that you kind of get around a lot. You kind of show like, what was he doing, you know, before we got to this point, like, or you know, because that's always kind of been one of my biggest complaints with certain comics is that, you know, oh, we got this book where it's like, hey, you know, Batman's in it. Well, Batman's dealing with this really like important thing over in his side of things, and for whatever reason, he totally has time for what's going on over here. And he doesn't really seem to be very pressed about the thing that's going on over his other book. And I actually like that you kind of set that up where it's like, no, he's got a thing going on. He's not like just walking away and just like ignoring the thing. You know?
Well, it's funny because you know, I needed this plot point to move my story forward, and Kyber was not my first choice. I was going to go for a higher profile adamantium and, you know, involved character. But I was informed that, hey, look, the first story arc in Wolverine is going to be about a lot of the adamantium based characters.
Mm-hmm.
I was like, all right. I rolled up my sleeves and started digging in, and the same thing happened to me. I was like, I kind of vaguely remember, because that issue of Wolverine that Kyber appeared in came out, not only did it come out back when I was writing Cable, but was actually a follow up to a story I'd done in Cable with you know, the Hellfire Club and oh God, what was the guy's name? It wasn't Sebastian Shaw. It was just the other guy, Pierce.
Oh, like Donald Pierce.
Oh, Pierce. And these guys, it was when Larson and Laniel Yu and Eric Stevenson were doing Wolverine, they picked up on that plot thread that I'd left hanging there and fed it into this story. So I'd remembered that. So I went back and I was like, please, God, let Kyber have some adamantium involvement. Luckily he did. He's chock full of it. I was like, okay, great. So it's a cool Easter egg. He'd only been seen the one time, even though they had alluded to other stories. So it was perfect. I knew that no one else was going to, you know, lay claim to him. And in a shared universe, that's always, it's not a danger, but it's always something you have to contend with, is something that you want to, is an element that you'd like to use being elsewhere at that time. And in this case it was, but they didn't know about Kyber, so he was all off.
You know, you saying that, you've actually given me two things to kind of latch on to, and I don't know if you knew you were doing it, but I'm gonna latch onto these things. First thing, and this is kind of a quick one because I think it's funny. Would the character you were, I don't know if you could say which character you originally intended, but would their name happen to rhyme with Kyber?
I had thought of him, trust me.
Okay.
Because I was a big fan of like the look of the character, the whole Sam Keith original, you know, visual. So yeah, that was definitely, he was definitely on the menu when I'd first thought of this idea.
Okay.
Yeah.
So yeah, that and I guess for those who don't know, talking about the character Cyber, who's adamantium armed. I think when he initially hit the scene, there wasn't really a whole heap of a lot of information about him, but like later on down the road, he got a lot more fleshing out, so we learned a lot more about him, and he somehow got crazier. But that also kind of leads me to the other thing. And I think this is something that kind of pulls a little bit of the curtain maybe back for some people, because one of the most common questions I always get asked, as if I have some inside baseball. Why would I have no idea? There's a running gag. I don't know if you know this, Joe. There's a running gag that I am a Marvel shill, that I am a paid asset by Marvel, that I'm on the payroll. When you walk into the Marvel Comics office, there's pictures of Stan Lee and Jack Kirby and Steve Ditko, and I have a picture right next to one of them. Like, I don't know if you knew this. Of course you know this. So oftentimes people ask me, they say, "Hey, Ernie, why did they not do this? Why did they not do that?" As if I could be like, well, actually, I actually was just having lunch with CB Cebulski the other day, and he told me the whole thing. I was actually emailing back and forth with Tom Brevoort, and he shared this information. Now, I don't know shit. Okay, I don't know shit about shit. Okay.
That's settled.
But no, like, the thing I always am curious about, because this is something I've always genuinely want to know, like, maybe why it happens. But like, you talked about how you had another character in mind, but you were told that character was already spoken for. I've always found that incredibly interesting. And I guess maybe it has to do with popularity, maybe, but like, when you have characters that are like as big as Spider-Man, Wolverine, Batman, Superman, so on and so forth. And these are characters who kind of get around. Like, you could usually, I think any given Wednesday, you could probably find all of them in at least 4, maybe 5 titles on the shelf at any one given time. But I've always found it so interesting that sometimes other characters are not treated, the same way. Like, oh, hey, we've already got this character, like, doing this one thing over here. Is it like I don't know, what's the best way to describe it? Is it like wrestling where it's like, no, we got to protect this character, or there's no way for us to make it make sense this character is doing this thing while, so like, is it like, what is the reasoning sometimes behind that?
I think often when you have an idea for, and it's usually, like you say, like a side character or some old villain or whatever, it's not being used anywhere else. You usually can make it happen. But like in the case of the Wolverine stuff, their opening arc is very much about the adamantium characters.
Right.
So they're performing a story function that is intrinsic to that story. So was mine, but the opening arc of Wolverine, I mean, it was bigger in scope. Mine was just a detail, a story that I needed to get to the next story point.
Right.
So I understood that story took precedence. So sometimes that's the fun of it, is like the challenge was thrown down. Like, how can I still tell my story and not, screw up theirs in any way, shape, or form, which I don't want to do. So, I mean, had I not found Kyber, I don't know what I would have done, to be perfectly honest.
Yeah.
Once I found him, I was like, done deal. I don't have to think about it anymore. But I'm sure other writers have moments where they have a story point they need to accomplish, and they just can't get the element to accomplish that story point. That's got to be hard to swallow. Drive you nuts. I've luckily, there's always another solution that, for me, in my experience, that always works out better. It always turns out better. Because if I'd have used a more popular character like Cyber, first of all, you'd be dead, at least for the purpose of this story. And there's a lot more backstory to Cyber's history with Wolverine. I would have had to squash. I mean, the Kyber thing is 2 pages, and I can get across everything about Kyber in 2 pages. I can set him up, kill him, button it all up in 2 pages, and not losing a whole swath of history, a whole swath of storyline. So it totally worked out in my favor for the story I was telling. So I tend not to get too bound up when these obstacles show up. To me, it's just a challenge, and what I signed up for: work for hire, shared universe writing. That's part of the deal.
It's, oh man, it's something that I I like I said, I love knowing how the sausage is made. It's a problem. Because I'll see the thing and be like, ooh, I wonder what was going on then. But
Well, when making comics is as bad as it is when you make real sausage, then you got a problem.
right.
That's grim. That is grim.
No, you're not wrong. You're not wrong. Well, it was kind of like the more I've learned about the inside of the industry and how like certain things work, like, okay, well, we gotta you have like your editor who like is kind of watching over the proceedings and like, okay, you can't do this. All right, we can do this, but we can't really do that. Like that sort of stuff. I always find it really interesting, like how it does and doesn't affect the overall process, because I think that's something that people I often see they get really hung up in is like what other than the why didn't they do this. I always get the question of so and so and so and so is ignoring this thing that happened over here, and so and so and so and so is ignoring this thing that happened over there, and it's like a
well, I'll tell you, before I wrote about this in my Substack a couple of weeks ago. Before I landed on Thunderbird, my original pitch in place of Thunderbird was Sabretooth.
I really miss my nigga. I really miss my nigga. White people, you can sing it too, just change that into a W. Miss my wigger.
And this is, again, I pitched this before I knew about the Wolverine Sabretooth War and what the outcome of that would be. But I was convinced at the outset when I pitched this that would be a killer lineup. I mean, Sabretooth to me is another movie star. He's been in the movies a couple times. So the commercial value was there, and the character dynamic of Wolverine being on a team with his greatest enemy had a lot of potential. So when they came back at early stages, like, look, they're doing this Sabretooth War and he's not going to survive, so he's going to be off the table. I took one shot at trying to circumvent that and say, well, we could still use him. I had some cockamamie idea, but which they shot down, but in finding Thunderbird as the replacement, that opened up a whole new avenue of stories that really locked the series in for me. It was like the best thing that could ever happen. So much story potential was unlocked from having Thunderbird as a part of it, that it was the best thing that could have happened. It was the coolest thing, that going from something I really wanted to happen to now being grateful that it didn't happen. Because what we've got with Thunderbird is, to me, so much more emotionally charged, creatively fulfilling. It's a better story. It makes more logical sense. It makes more character sense. So it's totally worked out for the best.
Let me ask you this too, because I know we had talked about this before, what the series is going to be, and how much you've kind of planned for, like in the long haul, for it. And one thing I was curious about, because especially with teams like this, the nature of having a team that is effectively a dysfunctional family. If I don't even know if I use the term family, a dysfunctional group of drinking buddies, we'll call it that. Sometimes, especially with some of the things that happen a little later in this issue, and how there are going to be some things that are going to drag these characters into be in opposition of each other, despite the fact that they're under normal circumstances on the same side. One thing I was curious about is, especially with the fact that, talking about a character like, Sabretooth, who isn't on the table anymore, and talking about, team makeup, sometimes, characters rotate out, on books that are ongoings.
Right.
Are there any characters that, like, if you like let's matter of fact, let's go ahead and put this in right here. Because you all are going to go do the thing, you're going to go get this in your pull box. You're going to go pick this up on Wednesday. I mean, if you don't have it in your pull box, you're going to get it in your pull box. So, I mean, obviously the book's going to do great. It's going to do fantastic. This is going to get, yeah, you guys are going to support it so well, it's going to get like 50 issues. You never know. I'm just throwing out a round number there.
Zoom out to the comic god's ears, Ernie.
There you see, yeah, see. Actually, I don't want anyone to know this. Actually, the secret is I actually am a Marvel shill. I actually do work at the office. I don't like letting this get out. I'm joking, y'all. I'm joking. I don't. I swear. Trust me. If I worked for Marvel, I would find better things to do with my time than sit here arguing with y'all that I don't work for Marvel. I'd be like, yeah, of course I do. Duh. I would own it. But no, I don't. I promise you I don't. That's not a thing. But but because you guys are going to go out and support this book, we're going to get all those extra issues. So, when it gets to like, I don't know, issue like 30 something, 40, I don't know. I mean, I'm just throwing out numbers here. When it gets there, if there was like a moment where like a character had to be rotated out, are there any characters like, you would love to like, get your hands on? Because I know we talked about the whole like the rule of 5, not really trying to blow that roster up any bigger than that. So not like adding any characters, but like if you had to switch one out, like are there any characters you would love to get in there?
That's a good question. I mean, I that wouldn't be my first thought because again, think about the original X-Men from the 60s. That series went for, 60 something issues with the same 5 members basically. So that would be sort of my goal, is to maintain the original 5 in this case. But I probably showed my hand in the alternatives that I had that I went through to get to Thunderbird. I thought maybe the Namor or the Submariner would be a good one, or Quicksilver might be cool to be in there. So those I would consider going back to those if I had a story that I was going to lift someone out and stick someone in. But to be honest, I want to avoid that because part of I think personally, if you look back in this is not a new complaint or whatever, but I think a lot of team books make changes too soon in their lineups. They don't give you enough time to really get to know the dynamic of the characters they start with before they start swapping people out, or the Avengers, which is my big book as a kid. I used to love the roster changes, but they would make a big deal out of them, and it would happen like maybe every 2 years or so. 2.5 years, and it would be, a whole issue devoted to the changing of the guard. Which I love that. But the thing about Weapon X-Men is they're not necessarily a formalized team with a charter and, procedures and all that kind of stuff. So it's a little more organic. That in a way helps keep it, to me, as the same 5. And what will be revealed eventually is that these 5 are supposed to be together. There's a reason that these 5 are, this dynamic exists, and it's really unclear to all of them at first, but to Cable specifically, he realizes very quickly, oh, this is it. This is the 5. This is gonna help in this thing that I've got to deal with. You see in the first issue when Deadpool's going on and on about, this is a team. This is we're going to be a franchise, and we're going to call ourselves Weapon X. Cable has a little aside where he says to himself, he's kind of realizing, oh, this is how it gets codified. This is how it happens. Okay,
It's like, all right.
If this is it, then this is it, and let's do it, because he's got a wider agenda that he has to deal with. If these are the guys that are going to help him, then that's what it is,
One thing I do want to ask you, and I don't know if we want to go into this one, but
I'm intrigued.
By the time we get to the back half of this book, it becomes really clear, Deadpool's up to something.
Oh yeah.
And I was actually curious, like, what was the mindset behind this part of it too, because of some things that it does kind of tie in, or at least it's tangential to some stuff that's going on with One World Under Doom as a whole. Can we talk about the like why Deadpool was so anxious to get Wolverine on board? Can we talk about that?
Well, basically the whole first part of the story is Wolverine is being hunted and being kind of messed with. And of course, Deadpool shows up in his bathroom and kind of, in a way, it's like hiding in plain sight. He says, hey, pal, somebody's out to get you. Well, of course, Deadpool's the one who's out to get him.
Right.
Deadpool, blasted the elevator. Deadpool shot him with the gas.
Yeah.
Deadpool's got an agenda here, a plan that he's got to enact. That's very much, again, what I like about team books is there are stories happening on multiple levels, and they're happening all over the place. It's not just one story going forward. It's a lot of different plot threads that are kind of weaving in and out. So the Deadpool Wolverine thing has nothing to do with One World Under Doom.
Right.
It's its own kind of, you see at the end of the issue, Deadpool has been hired by Baron Strucker to bring in Wolverine.
Right.
Now, Deadpool doesn't know it's Baron Strucker.
Right.
We know it's Baron Strucker by the end of the issue. But so that's a whole nother thread that we're going to go down. But it made sense. I mean, Deadpool's a mercenary.
Right. Merc with a mouth.
Exactly. So it makes sense that he might get hired for something like this, and he's pretty good at his job. But again, it's as the story goes on, as the next couple of issues will reveal, there's a lot of layers to peel back, and nothing is exactly what it appears to be. I mean, in Deadpool's case, he's got to make it look like he's going to do what he's been hired to do. But again, there's he's not quite the heel that he seems to be.
Right. Well, I thought it was really cool just because, well, for one, you rarely ever see Baron von Strucker in anything. Like, he's kind of, he haphazardly pops in like in random places, and then you just never see him again for a while. But what I thought was so interesting is because, when you get to One World Under Doom #1, Hydra is in this very like strange place where it's like, well, hey, one minute we're storming the beaches of Latveria. The next minute, nope. We are totally working, with Dr. Doom. And then it's like, well, psych, that's actually not happening at all. We're not working with Dr. Doom, and now we're going to kill everybody. And then it's like, and so like it was actually kind of hilarious to me because when I read this issue, and I was like, I wonder if Baron knows. Like, I wonder if he knows what's going on. Like, is he in? Is he in on what's happening right now? But that's what I thought was just so interesting about like how everything is kind of layered, where there's multiple fronts like just happening like all over the place, and how they fit together. There's
a visual cue on the last page when we reveal Baron Strucker. He's not wearing any green. There's no snakehead logos anywhere. That should tell you right there that he's not part of Hydra.
He's gone into business for himself.
He's an independent operator, but he has made his base on a classic Marvel Universe locale that Jim Steranko came up with way back in the Strange Tales Nick Fury days. Which again, part of the mission statement of the book was to have these mutant characters explore different corners of the Marvel Universe that mutants don't necessarily, it's not their jurisdiction. So to see, Wolverine and Deadpool on Hydra Island, it's too cool to pass up. I mean, so you see that in issue 2, and again, it's glorious because that Hydra Island is some whacked out place, man.
Yeah, honestly, when you said it, it's something that, it's definitely one of those locales that like, when you think about it, it's like, oh man, that's a crazy setup, but it's like, it's not something that I've even thought about in a while. So like just the fact to see it like pop back up here, it's like, oh, okay. All right. This is all right. This is gonna be some cool shit going on here.
I mean, it's a very comic book location because if you read the old Steranko art, it makes no sense. There's no architectural things to it whatsoever. But the thing about it is what I like about Weapon X-Men is we take all of this stuff completely at face value.
I love it.
We treat one thing I told Cross, I was like, look, man, we're going to go all over the Marvel Universe with this thing, but we have to treat Hydra Island as though it were an old movie set that hasn't been filmed on in years. So we're going to pull it out of the storage, maybe polish it up a little bit. It is the set. It is the same set.
It's the same thing.
Franco's issues, because that it's kind of, as a comic book fan, that kind of what Grant Morrison termed super consistency back in the day.
Yeah.
It's important to me. That's what I'd want to read if I was reading this as a fan. If they were showing me Hydra Island, I want it to look like Hydra Island. As no matter how effed up Hydra Island was, it's got to look like Hydra Island.
Oh, I only have one request. I only have one, and I don't know. You might have already gotten this one in there. If we can get a field trip to the old Jack Kirby style metal jungle of Wakanda from way back, because it was such a thing that it didn't, like, even as a kid, it didn't make a lick of sense to me. But it was one of those things I was like, I don't know, man, guy in Panther pajamas. I don't know. I mean, I'm just gonna go with it.
Well, listen, we did Wakanda way back in, I think, one of my early issues of Cable, and Ladrone drew the hell out of that metal jungle.
Yeah,
it was something. We're gonna really touch on some cool Marvel lore. I can tell you that if anybody remembers, he showed up first in the Shogun Warriors comic and then showed up in Avengers. The kaiju combat killer Red Ronin is coming up in issue 4. And I don't know if anybody's thought of Red Ronin in 30 years.
I don't think so.
Yeah. But I mean, our story in issue number 4 is almost like a direct sequel to those issues he appeared in the Avengers, which was, I think, Avengers 198, 199. It's pretty much a sequel to that story. And then in issue 5, we go back to Valhalla Base, which, if anybody remembers, again, from X-Men 94, 95. So I mean, there's some really cool classic Marvel locations that we're going to be visiting, and it's just a lot of fun.
Well, I'll say this much. I love the issue. I thought it was great. It was everything I thought it should have been.
God.
I'm just saying, I don't have a teleprompter. I've not been sent any special corporate memo or anything. No cue cards from the Marvel home office. I don't have any of that. I legitimately read the issue. I liked what I read. I thought that all the characters acted. I use the word sound. I mean, you can't hear them, but I mean, I can hear them in my head. They read the way I feel they should read, and their interactions make sense. No one's acting. I don't think anyone's acting out of character or doing something that you would see them doing. You would be like, well, that character would never do that. As people often try to tell me,
Right.
Deadpool would never trick Wolverine. Yeah, he would.
Yeah.
Absolutely. I often like to remind people, like, everything people think that a character won't do, I promise you wait long enough, they'll do it. They'll do it at some point. Just, Captain America will never hail Hydra. Well, funny you say that. But it was great. It was cool seeing all these characters interact. I'm looking even more forward to seeing just how much more dysfunction this team can actually handle. And a lot. Well, and then also just the promise of seeing how they still work together despite it.
Yeah.
That to me that's the hook. That's the hook for me, is like, oh man, but how is it all gonna work out? Like, how is it all gonna work out and go well? But yeah, this is gonna be out like by the time you guys are seeing this video, the book is gonna be out on shelves, comic book shelves everywhere. You know, some of you, I know there's a lot of y'all that watch the channel, y'all pick up pretty much X anything. So I probably don't have to tell you this, but if for whatever reason, you know, you somehow didn't know this book was happening, go into the shop. If you're in the shop right now, go pick it up off the shelf. If you're not in the shop yet, get in the car or get a ride, Uber, Lyft, whatever, get to the shop, get the book. And if you just left the shop, turn around, march back in there, pick up the book.
And not only that, if you like it, tell your store, tell your retailer, you want to order number 2, you want to order number 3. Don't just be one of those plebes who gets issue 1 and puts it in your wall and never thinks about it. We want readers. That's what we make the book. It's not a collector's item, comic book, but you read and enjoy and invest in the characters and get caught up in the story and take the roller coaster ride with us. Get your popcorn. It's blockbuster comics here. So we're here for you to read.
No, this must be a key issue. No, read it. Actually read it.
Yep.
Trust me, you will not regret it. It is like I cannot overstate it. This is a fun issue, and yeah, get the whole thing. And you know what? No, don't stop there though. Don't stop there. I think what you should also do is you should get on your computer, pull out your phone, whichever device you have in front of you. You should go to the link that's in the description. Go to Joe Casey Substack. Go follow that. Trust me, you'll thank me later. You'll thank because you guys often do. You'll come back and be like, man, dude, you remember you told me about the yeah, dude, I did it. It was really good. I told you. Why would I? You said it as if I was gonna lie to you. As if I tell people I like things that I don't like. I don't have a habit of doing that. I don't do that. If I say I like something or I think something's cool, probably because I do.
Yeah.
But also there's gonna be links down below to a bunch of different books that Joe has done, and you should go check those out. If you have a Max subscription, you go watch some Ben 10, go watch some Generator Rex, and get the streaming numbers up, so that way we can get the word out, and the bean counters back at the headquarters will be like, hey, people are really watching this. Maybe we'll get another. Maybe we should put another one of these through. Is it time? I think it's time. Do that too. Go do all the things. Go support all the stuff. Go read. Because I think Space Quest is I believe. Next month.
Yep.
While you're at the shop, go ask for that. Go check out Johnny Quest. You just go check out all those things. And I think Blood Squad 7 just had a new issue last week, I believe.
A couple weeks ago, and the new one's coming out end of the month, beginning of next month. So it's still going strong.
So yeah, go check out those, especially if you like this book. If you like this book, you like those kind of like characters that kind of get in each other's faces, or that kind of, or if you're just a really big fan of that 90s Image Comics aesthetic, I am. I say go check it out. I don't even want to say a whole heap of a lot about it, because I feel like half the fun is just, I went into Blood Squad 7, ice cold. I knew nothing about it other than the fact that you were writing it, and I read it and I was like, I'm glad no one tried to explain this. I was like, I'm glad. It's just good. Just go read it. There's a I think the first is I believe there's first trade's out. Just go read that. Just go read that. I got nothing else after that. Joe, is there anything else that you wanted to plug while you were here?
No, man, I'm all plugged out, man. I'm just happy to be here. Great to talk to you, Ernie. I love it, man.
Hey, I always enjoy and y'all, if you guys enjoy stuff like this, I don't know, maybe let me know. It's rare that we actually get to get the information like literally straight from the well that sprung it forth. So let me know if you guys like that sort of thing. Maybe we'll try and do something more like this. But yeah, hey, until next time, once again, go read the books, go support Joe Casey's work out there, because he is doing the Lord's work out here in these comics, and yeah, we will see you all next time.